Hey guys, it is Melissa and welcome back to my channel. I'm really happy you guys are here with me today because I'm going to be asking for your help on something. I came across this case and I was actually introduced by another YouTuber. Her name is Bailey Sarian and she does something on Mondays called Murder Makeup Mystery. So if you are into makeup and true crime, then she is definitely the gal for you. She's got a really honest voice. She speaks the truth. Her research is really good. I'm very impressed with her. And I love makeup. So it's a great combo if that's what you're into. But she did this case a couple of weeks ago and I just couldn't stop. So then I ended up watching the documentary called The Silent Truth by her family. And it's very, very well done. It talks about cover-ups. It talks about sexual assault on women in the military. So there's just an array of information that's very useful and definitely something you want to look into. So here's the deal. There's a petition going around right now to help bring awareness to this case again. Now, I'm going to make sure I link that petition down below. And it is on the website moveon.com. And the petition is going to go to Senator Carl Levin, and he has direct authority over the military for all matters on behalf of the U.S. So that's who they're trying to get the petition to. So do me a favor, guys. Watch this video. Watch any of the links that I put down below. And if you so feel moved as I did to sign this petition, then I'm asking you to please do that. And that will be linked down there for you guys. So thank you again. And let's go ahead and jump into the video because we want to talk about LaVena Johnson. Okay, LaVena Johnson was born on July 27th of 1985. Her father was Dr. John Johnson, and he was a service vet. Her mother was Linda Johnson, and her mother and father had 5 children. So she had 3 brothers and a sister. There is a website dedicated to LaVena called LaVenaJohnson.com. And when you go in there, you can read all about her. I mean, she was an honor student. She was part of her Sunday service. She was funny. She was outgoing. She was bright. She was a runner. She was known to be an up early person going for it. Stories about her, sitting in the swing when she was little. There's a lot about her, and it's very moving and very touching. So I'm going to make sure I link that down below so you guys can really hear a lot about her childhood and who she was as a person. So when she graduated from high school, here's the way that it was. Her mother and father were very set up and had everything organized for their children, had organized college for all 5 of the siblings. But LaVena wanted to go to college out of state, and her other sister was going to college at the same time. So she went to her parents and was like, are you going to be able to handle me and my sister going to college at the same time? Her dad's like, yeah, I'm fine. I got it set up. She's like, well, I want to go out of state. And this is really cute because the way the father explains it, it's in the documentary that I watched, and he's just like, ooh, well, okay, yeah, no, I can handle out of state. Because if you're not aware, out of state fees are way higher than in-state fees. So he was like, nope, that's fine. And he literally said, I will work as long as I have to pay for you guys to go to college. And she was independent. He called her like her mama. And that she was like, I don't want you to have to pay for all of that. And she decided to follow in her father's footsteps and join the Army. The goal that she had was to go to college, and that's why she wanted to go in California and become a movie producer. Apparently, her father had written several fiction books, and this was something she wanted to do to bring those books to light. Her brother was into music and producing music, so that was definitely a big reason why she wanted to go to California to go to school. So the plan was go to the military, earn the funds to go to school in California. So at the age of 19 years old, 1 year after graduating from high school, she joined the Army and she was deployed to Iraq. Once she was in Iraq, she was part of the 129th Corps Support Battalion, and it appears that she was working in the telecommunications building. Now, she was writing with her parents on a regular basis. There's a bunch of letters that are read in the documentary. She talks about the different experiences of having to buy different products than what she brought, that they don't provide soap, so she had to, needed them to send her soap. It was good. There was, a little bit of oh, it's really hot, but then the nights are beautiful. Talking about a 3-day trip that they had to do that was, just really rigorous, and she got burns on her from shell casings and just part of training. But then she was talking about going to a church service where it was really lovely and she got to meet people. So she definitely, Yeah, she mentioned a couple of struggles, but her letters were very upbeat and very happy. And despite the fact that she was, in the middle of Iraq, she seemed to be in a really upbeat mood about it. She was in regular communication with phone calls with her family. The last phone call that they had with her was on July 17th. And she phoned home at 7:30 in the morning. She talked with her father for a moment, and then she spent some time laughing and talking with her mom. Her mom said that it was a great conversation. She asked her if she wanted to go wake up her siblings, and she's like, no, it's too early in the morning. I'll call back. And she's like, okay, great. So she just figured they would talk the next day. LaVena was really excited because she found out that she was pretty sure she was going to make it home for Christmas. So things were well. And her birthday, she was going to be turning 20 in 8 days. What happened to her on July 19th of 2005? According to the military, so we're going to do the official events as reported. On the night of July 18th, she received an email from a boyfriend that she was dating either 2 or 6 months. Because I saw 2 different dates. But a short-term boyfriend had broke up with her via email. And she had printed those emails and went to the PX and bought a 6-pack of soda. And then went back to her room. She was with an unnamed person. Went back to her room for a little bit. And then left that room and went to a contractor's tent, which was the contractor's tent of Kellogg, Brown, and Root, which is a contractor that they use in Iraq. Went into that tent and started to burn the letters that she printed, and then attempted to set the tent on fire, and then took her M16 rifle, which we're going to talk about this because an M16 rifle is 40 inches long, used her right thumb and put the M16 gun into her mouth and shot herself in the mouth, causing an exit wound out her left side. She was found the morning, and the assumption is, I believe that when she actually did this, it was 1 o'clock in the morning on the 19th. At 7:30 in the morning, an officer in the military arrived at the door of Dr. John and Linda Johnson and notified them of their daughter's death. Mr. Johnson had to do a lot of digging to get them to explain, because apparently the person who was there slipped out that it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and then they wanted to know more. So this intrigued him a little bit. He was kind of like, what do you mean my daughter shot herself? Like, whoa, give me information. What happened? They didn't want to give information. There was going to be a government liaison that was going to come out and give them information. So it was really disconcerting. And then, and this just like when the mom tells this part of the story, she remembers the last time she had picked her daughter up from the airport. And when she picked her up, she jumped up and she's just running towards her, and LaVena comes running to her, and she's just so excited. And then this time she had to go to the airport and pick her daughter up in a casket. And when they wheeled her out with the flag over her casket, she just was totally heartbroken. So at this point, the family's really confused. They're just like, what is going on? She wasn't in imminent danger where she was. She wasn't in an active situation. And so what's going on? And she seemed happy. They had just spoke with her the day before. Everything seems fine in her life. What do you mean she shot herself? So her dad is thinking back. He had spoke with her about a week prior, and she was a little upset because she had, in the telecommunications center, so when it was time to shut down, she had to kick everyone out and get the door shut. And apparently there were some soldiers in there that were just like, no, we don't want to leave. And they weren't listening to her. And she's trying to get them out and they just won't go. And so a general had came in and got them out, but then got onto LaVena and basically told her that it's her fault because she needs to learn how to speak up. And while I get the coaching moment that might have happened, apparently her father knew better than that, because she's a private and he's a general, and the way he was speaking to her wasn't acceptable, and that's not the way they handled situations. And And it does seem kind of like she's only been there 8 weeks. And I get you wanting to coach her, but it didn't seem like a coaching moment. It seemed more like she got in trouble because they wouldn't listen to her, rather than being like, hey, you know what, they're in trouble, but let me help you out with, speaking higher. It wasn't like that. It was like she got in trouble and that she wasn't going to make it if she didn't learn how to speak up, that she was too soft-spoken. So her father was already kind of like, but he didn't think she was that unhappy with what was going on. In fact, he had encouraged her to get a battle buddy, which is someone that can kind of be with her, to by her side, somebody that you call on. And she's like, nope, I don't want to rustle feathers. I don't want to draw attention to myself. So she definitely seemed like she was handling it because she wanted to be independent and take care of it on her own. So now they have her body. And the government had encouraged them to have a closed casket because they said the condition of her body having severe damage, that they might want to do a closed casket. The family decided not to, and of course they wanted to see the body. The father wanted to see the condition of his daughter's body. He's in shock. He just wants to see it. And the first thing he noticed is, I'm going to give you guys this right now, okay? Yes, I know about guns, but no, I don't know about guns at the same time. Like, I only know basics. So everyone I've talked to about this and everything I found online and everything I read. So she apparently shot herself with an M16. And the first thing the parents noticed was that there was a small, this is going to be my left. This is going to mirror. Anyways, my left. There's a small wound here on her head, on the left side of her head. And the father was like, that's really small wound. And they said, that's the exit wound. And he's like, what are you talking about, an exit wound? Because he was confused, because he's like, why is there on the left side of her head when she's right-handed? The M16 that was issued to her was 40 inches long. LaVena is only 5'1", which means she was 61 inches tall. And so she was 21 inches taller than the M16. So her father's like, how did she do that? They're like, well, she put it in her mouth and then used her right thumb to pull the trigger, causing the bullet to go up and out the head. I will never insert graphic pictures onto any video I ever do. So I will tell you that it is out there. I'm not linking to it. You can look it up if you want to. I didn't want to see it. But I expected an M16, and I'll put a picture of an M16 for you, would cause very large damage to the head, like big. It's not. It's very small. In fact, you know what? Other than the fact that I know what it is, it's really actually not that graphic of a picture, because it is actually just a small wound. And so her father's like, obviously he has a lot more experience, and he's like, that looks like a 9mm. Like, that looks like a 9mm wound. And they said, no, it's the M16. So he's like, okay, doesn't seem like that. And they start to examine her body, and they find that she's got just bruises. He notices that her nose has been broke. So it's been broke and pushed up to the left. So maybe, I can't figure that one out. Because I was thinking, like, you know how, like, the recoil of guns, like, maybe her teeth were also broken out. Now, I know that can definitely be from a gunshot wound in the mouth. So she also had a black eye. It starts to be just a lot of facial damage considering the wound. It just doesn't seem consistent. But again, I'm not a forensic examiner. Her family and many people who are way more knowledgeable than I am really feel that it just doesn't make sense. I've looked at a lot of suicides before, like, and looked at the way that they happen. And this one, like, it doesn't seem, that's just too much damage to the face. Then they started looking at her body, and there appeared to be bite marks, scratches. Her right hand had been burned. Now remember, there was the fire. Her back had been burned. So again, Maybe she landed on the fire. Okay. It just doesn't. It's too many things. You know when you have a crime and there's like the one thing that's like, that's really weird. And you're like, yeah, I know it's weird, but it makes sense if you look at it this way. And you're like, wow, yeah, that's crazy, but okay. This isn't like that. There's just too many things. Now, the shell casing was found under her right leg, so it ejected and then she lands on top of it. Maybe, but it was like under. So, okay, maybe she landed on it. I don't know which is more of the kicker, okay? Because there are two things that make no sense to me. So, I'm really not comfortable posting the picture, okay? So, I'm just not going to. So, I'm going to explain it to you as the best as I can. You have a room, okay? So, we're just going to have this is what the picture is. It's a square. And on the very right is a little burn pile of paper. And it's only about like this big, okay? Maybe this big. Then you have LaVena's body, and she is laying on her back with her right arm over her face, like this, kind of over her eyes. Her left arm is down and her legs are out straight. The shell casing is under her right leg. And then to the left is a cot. And this cot, they're not big, they're not massive. It's not a big, huge twin-size bed or anything, but it's a cot, which is, so you take the size of a body, a little bit bigger, okay? So there's a cot, one of those green military cots. It's short off the ground, but it's just got a basic cot. The M16 is over here on the other side of the cot on the ground. And there are no fingerprints on it. There's also no gun residue on LaVena's hands. Okay, I've heard that sometimes residue doesn't always transfer. I don't think so. I think only if you use gloves at a trial. Anyway, so they said there was no gunshot residue, and apparently that was fine, and that can happen. And that this gun just, like, bounce. I don't know, but somehow it ends up way over there, okay? Like, that makes no sense. That is so far away. All right, fine. I'm like, none of this is sitting well, right? It's just too many weird things. The next part is just troubling. There was some sort of a corrosive acid poured onto the genitals of LaVena. You can't explain that one. That makes no freaking sense. Who would do that to themselves? Who would be on the phone with their mother the day before talking about how excited they are to come home for Christmas and then pour acid on their private area? Like, that makes no sense. I can't think of a reason. No sense whatsoever. It just doesn't make any sense. Nobody would harm themselves like that. That is brutal torture. Here's how the family actually had to get all this information, right? So the father is at the funeral home. He's looked at her body. He also notices that the white gloves that they put on to her for the casket are glued onto her hands. And the father immediately goes to the funeral home director thinking, like, is this normal? Like, and they're like, that is not a thing. I've never heard of that. That's not a thing. That's not something they do for vets. That's not something they do for that's not a thing. Okay? Like, at all. And so he's just like, that is freaking weird, you know? And they said that there was no forensic evidence found on her hands. One of them was burned, but there's no reason to glue these gloves onto her hands. So the father starts thinking, I think something's being covered up because that's weird. So he makes a request to get the information, to get a copy of this report using the Freedom of Information Act. And he's denied at first. He goes through all the hoopla and he gets a redacted black and white Xerox copy of the file. But with these Xerox photos, the first thing he notices is the one photo of the gun clear on the other side. And he starts reading through and he starts finding out that there's witness statements talking about how his daughter had previously been sexually assaulted and he did not know about this. Nobody in the family knew, but apparently there were witnesses saying that she had previously been sexually assaulted and that she was actually taking medication for an STD as a result of this. But there isn't information. Nobody knows who did it. Nobody knows who she reported it to. It's just very vague. So her father is like, no, I want more information. And apparently there was a CD-ROM that was full of photos. And they did not send that to them, of course, because they only sent them like black and white, Xerox, grainy photos. And so the father sees this, and it's always kind of curious. Like, everyone believes that it's possible that there was like a guardian angel in the government that was like, you know what? They need to know that this is out there, because Mr. Johnson didn't know to request this, because he didn't know that this CD-ROM existed until somebody sent a photocopy of the front of it. So once he knew that, so thankful to whoever sent that accidentally or on purpose, now he knew that it existed and he made an official request. They had to get government officials involved. In 2007, there was a gentleman, I forgot his first name, but a representative, last name Clay, who was on C-SPAN and who straightened to the government, right there on C-SPAN. It was like, you need to give us access to this information. And the guy's like, oh yeah, just send me a request and we'll process it. Apparently it wasn't really like that. It took a lot more work, but eventually they got the CD-ROM. And when they got the color photos, they were really able to see there was her body. Okay, so here's the thing. I know that from the letters that she had sent home, she would have bruises on her body. Okay, this was training. This was in the army. She's in Iraq. She's going to have bruises on her. She has PT every day. Like, she's going to be beat up. So, but they said that they saw consistent with bite marks. Okay, there's nothing that she's doing out there that's going to get bite marks on her. There was a trail of blood outside the tent. You can't explain that. There's absolutely no way to explain that. There should not be a trail of blood. She could not move after she shot herself. She can't move. So there was also dirt and debris on her back, which made it seem as if she had been drugged. Nothing about the crime scene photos and the autopsy made sense to the family. When Mr. Johnson spoke with the medical examiner, one of the first thing he asked is, did you do a rape kit? And he said, no, I didn't see any reason to do a rape kit. And he's like, you have someone who killed themselves. You think committed suicide. You don't check to see what, things that might have been going on with them. Like, this doesn't seem like this was a very thorough examination. And he's asking him about the wound, and it just didn't make any sense. Now, at some point in time, from what I found online, CBS actually paid for a second autopsy. And when they did the second autopsy, it was even more disturbing. First of all, at some point in time, they found that she had a broken neck, which maybe from falling, maybe from... It doesn't know. They also found that parts of her anus, vagina, and tongue had been cut out. The theory is that wound stat, which is like in the field, it's something they put on a wound. So kind of think of like liquid latex or liquid bandage, and they put it on the wound, but it's like a very, very, very serious wound stat. So, and it actually has to be surgically removed. So they have to cut it out. So I mean, it was used on her, and then at the autopsy, they had to surgically remove it. Either way, in the original autopsy, it's never mentioned. It's not even in there. I am going to say this as well because I really, really hate this. Okay, when I covered the Maddie McCann case, I remember very clearly the amount of people who were talking about how you can't say anything against the McCanns because they shut down everyone. That's why if you go on Amazon, all you'll ever find is their books with their side of the story. You can't go against them because they'll shut you down with their money. It appears possibly this is the case in this story as well, because from what I found online, and I believe it was from thesource.com, and I'll see if I can link everything, that CBS and ABC all invested money and time into this story, but eventually never ran it. And I don't know why. Like, why not raise awareness and help them out? Like, you did an autopsy. You see that something's not consistent. there was a TV show that basically was told that if they featured this case, that the military would no longer run ads with them. And again, this is all speculation because I don't know. I'm not there. They didn't actually come to me. I didn't see actual documentation of it. So this is like the stupidest thing, by the way, but I have to mention this because so the father obviously wanted his daughter's psychological profile because he's like, okay, my daughter committed suicide. Like, somebody needs to help me figure out what was going on with my daughter. And there was these long reports about how she was depressed and that she had completely changed her moods and her attitudes. Okay, first of all, she's only been there 8 weeks. So give the girl a minute to adjust. And the father is like reading further, like, what do they mean? Like, what was so different about her? And it just went on and on about how she started eating ice cream and that she was eating ice cream like 3 or 4 times a day. And it also said on there that she picked up smoking. I mean, this sounds like a 19-year-old girl in a sweltering hot country, like where she's unfamiliar with. Yeah. She couldn't have been that depressed. She was making phone calls. She was writing letters. She was participating in activities. Have some ice cream. First of all, she wasn't in her barracks. For some reason, she was in a contractor's tent. Why she was in a contractor's tent, not a clue in the world. Why she would be burning letters in the contractor's tent is just crazy. Like, I can't imagine that she would think that was a good idea. There was no signs that she was a rebellious type person who would try to purposely break rules. So I can't imagine she would even want to do that because she would get in trouble and then her mother would know and her father would know. Like, it's just not really seeming up to par with the type of person she was. And then she beats herself up viciously, like breaks her nose, blacks her eye. The teeth might have been from the gunshot wound, but knocks her teeth around, scratches her body up, somehow has bite marks, and then goes outside because you got to make a blood trail. Goes outside, comes back in, but gets herself in all dirty, rolling on the ground, burns her hand, burns her back, and then shoots herself through the head, but has the gun like, oh, hold on, and poured. She had to stop and pour acid on her genitals and then shoots herself, and the gun ends up over there. I'm not seeing it. I just don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. And there were a couple of committees, and there was a committee that spent 3 years reviewing the case. And at the end of it, all they said is that we do not disagree with the findings of the military. If that doesn't sound like they weren't shut up. Because if you spent 3 years, you're invested. Your heart is invested. You would have a lot more to say. Especially if you went into it investigating thinking that there was a wrong. Then you really felt passionate about it. So if at the end of it, you pieced it all together in a way that made absolute sense to you, why would you not put that together for everyone else to understand, no, guys, it actually did happen this way because look, blah, 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 blah. Because that's what I went looking for. I searched and I searched and I searched. And please, if there's one out there, go ahead and link it down below because I'll watch it. Because I am curious because I searched and there is nothing out there that I can find to make this make any sense other than that's what they said happened. In 2015, her father, John, was interviewed and he made the statement that a piece of his heart was ripped out and it could never be replaced. And I can only imagine that that's exactly how they feel to this day. So I always say, I just want to help and I just want to bring awareness. And this time there's actually a way that we can do that. I'm putting the link down below and I'm going to make it pop up, I think, in this corner, so that you guys can click directly on that and sign this petition. So do me a favor, guys, hug your babies, hug your loves, and enjoy every minute of every day because life is absolutely precious and things can happen in the blink of an eye. So I love you guys and thank you so much for watching. Leave me some comments down below and let me know what you guys think of this case because I am intrigued about your comments. Thanks and talk to you guys soon.